the regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Works Committee. I am the chair, Jeff Hudson. I am joined in chamber by Councilman Herndon, Councilman Bratcher, Councilman Benson, and Councilwoman Purvis. We had two items on the agenda. Item number 2, R-024-25 will be held. So the only remaining item we have on the agenda is update on paving. We have Executive Director Kern to present. Thank you for providing the presentation ahead of time. That was helpful. You have the floor, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for having me today. I'm joined also with Matt Haynes, who leads our paving program. So I know that we have some new faces here. We'll kind of start at the beginning, and then please stop me if you have any questions along the way. So the first question, where to find paving information? We have our 3-year paving plan that is available online. And for reasons that I will get into later in the presentation, the current plan presents for fiscal years 25 and 26, and we'll talk about 27 in a moment. There is also a Louisville Metro paving map that is a little easier to find. You can search it for street names, and it identifies not just streets that are in our 2025 and 2026 plan, but also streets that have a moratorium, which in that case means that the street was paved within the last 5 years, and we're encouraging utilities to not cut those open. We continue to have better coordination with our utilities. We actually just received notice that we will be, we had a very good candidate for our utility coordinator, and they have accepted a position with us. So we will have them on board at the end of March. So as I said, we're going to continue to try to coordinate and help the utilities not cut open streets that we just paved, and just continue to get better on that communication. So paving isn't just paving. There are several different things that happen when we go in and we pave a street. There are various safety improvements that might need to occur at the time. If there's a shoulder repair, a drop-off, other things that could increase safety along the way, we'll try to take care of those when we're out there. Also, reconstruction for base failures. So ahead of paving, many times there is work that needs to be done within the base, sections being replaced before we can pave over them. And then also another thing that we're investigating further are potential cost savings with restriping projects. So if our planning teams have striping projects that are in queue, getting, again, better at that coordination and building in lead time so that we can go back and just stripe the project that's proposed, and at that point it's little to no additional cost because we were going to restripe it likely anyway. And then the other requirement is the federal requirement for ramp replacing. So when we go out, before we would pave a street, we would also be replacing ramps at corners. Sidewalk ramps, yes. So the update for fiscal year 25, last fall we paved about 170 lane miles, and this spring, summer, we're gearing up to pave another 135 lane miles that we have remaining. So the ability to pave is weather permitting. It's got to be consistently above 40 degrees. So that's something we will be getting a little bit of a late start this year just due to weather. So what to expect for fiscal year 26 and beyond. As I mentioned, the 3-year paving plan does outline roads in there that are anticipated to be paved in fiscal year 26. We will, for those of you that have been on council, we will be working to schedule those one-on-one meetings to go over what that paving plan is. For higher volume roads, such as arterials and collectors, those are set, but there is some room within local streets. If there are streets that you understand are a higher priority, and with you knowing your constituents better, we give the option to trade for, if there's a road that is a higher priority, to do that in place or switch them around. Moving on to the following year, one thing that's very exciting, and you may remember from the past year budget, is the pavement condition index. One question that I have received before is, hey, why don't we haven't done one of these in a while. Why don't we do them every year, where they can be very expensive? So it depends upon the amount of data that they're collecting. The current one is 250,000. Is that about correct? But they can be anywhere from $250,000 to $700,000, depending upon how much data you collect. The current project is underway. We're about 83% done and anticipate having that paving condition index in by April. So what is even more exciting about that is we will then have additional data to help us understand the longevity, the lifespan of paving, maybe areas that are deteriorating faster than others, and help us get clued into why. And then also we have a contract with Open, oh, go ahead.
Roughly mid-April.
So what's very exciting about this, the most recent paving assessment, is that it's something that we're going to load into OpenGov. So we have a software for asset management that we will start collecting information in. So we will be able to load that paving assessment into OpenGov. It will help us with the use of AI to generate the paving plan for fiscal year 27, which is why that's not in your 3-year plan. So that's the idea, is that we would have more data, but also the ability to analyze that differently in a much more expansive way than we ever have before. We will also be adding in our sidewalk assessment. The sidewalk assessment was originally done in 2019, but Matt does pull sidewalk requests every year out of Excella that are reported. So that information will also be added into OpenGov. That assessment was originally done in 10-foot sections, and having it in this format will help us to get it a little more usable. So understanding block by block which blocks need to be addressed rather than 10-foot segments, and will help us in decision making for those as well.
I need to point out, we've been joined by Councilwoman and Vice Chair Shamika Parrish-Wright and Councilwoman Chappell. We have a few new council members that might benefit from an explanation of how that assessment is made.
Okay.
The truck with the AI cameras, and it's a pretty fascinating
I have.
data collection.
All right, and I will go back, and just for clarification, this is a screenshot of an example type of dashboarding that we would potentially be able to use to be able to start conveying results of paving or paving condition moving forward. Jumping back to the paving condition index, so we've partnered with IMS as the company that's doing the paving assessment for us. So officially, I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk about the
So your
truck.
pavement condition is you go out and you actually physically measure the distresses in the pavement, and then you utilize that data that you're collecting, so like potholes, longitudinal cracking, alligator cracking. There's several others too, rutting, other things like that. You take that data and then you can,
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself for the record, please?
apologize, Matt Haynes, Engineering Supervisor for Public Works. So as I was saying, it's a measure of the distresses, and then you take that and then it generates a number from 0 to 100, 0 being a road that essentially is completely degraded, 100 being a brand new paved road. In general, we're looking for, when we're going out to pave, we're paving things that are 55 or below is what we're trying to target. And as we get higher and higher, I mean, that's what we're hoping for, is a better roadway network.
So the ranking on the data that's collected, here's a general index, and this is also in our paving plan, but it describes, on that scale, what's considered very good. And then, as Matt talked about, that fair range being in the 50s, and us working to get the majority of our pavement above that condition.
Councilwoman Parrish Wright.
Thank you. I appreciate seeing this information because I am new to some of this. And on one of the slides, you had that there were 135 pavings left. And how many are from that you didn't get to complete last year? And then how many of what would be the percentage that are at this 55 and below?
So the 135 was the amount of lane miles that we have left to repave this year. In general, we look to pave between 200 and 250 lane miles a year. So there was about 40 or 50 lane miles that transferred on over from fiscal year 24 into fiscal year 25 that we paved back in July and August, let's say. So roughly 135 lane miles left to go for this fiscal year. So hopefully we'll get that done, the majority of it done through June 30th. But there's also like a lag in our funding when it comes out each fiscal year. So as the budget's approved, we might not see those new account strings come late July if it's MAP funding or even later if it's bond funding.
Councilwoman Purvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to know, do you have maintenance schedule to prevent damage from your new paved roads that can prevent having to go all the way back to square one to repave probably 10, 15 years after paving a street? I notice when the streets are paved, they look very nice and fresh. But I notice throughout the years, maybe 3 to 5 years and up, when we have bad weather and potholes come and you try to patch them, it never really matches the pavement, or sometimes it's not patched good. You have elevated pieces of pavement and so forth. So what are you doing? Are you going to include a maintenance plan to prevent damaging, to prevent the damage that takes place on the paved roads?
So that's one of the things that we do talk about in, I believe in the pavement, the 3-year paving plan, is ultimately moving, once we do get caught up and have those roads above a 55 or higher, moving to things like crack sealing, other types of maintenance that would then prolong the life of the asphalt. We do that from time to time in certain areas with operations. As far as a structured plan for maintenance, that's not something that we have moved into just yet.
Would that save money in the long run if we had a scheduled maintenance plan, like you said, resealing these roads, like, I don't know, maybe every 2 to 3 years, whereas you won't have to get to a point of totally having to repave a road? I know that's very expensive. Would that save money in the long run if a maintenance plan was designed and followed?
It certainly could, and that is definitely something that we want to look at moving into as we are getting caught up with paving, moving into that maintenance role.
Okay, and I wanted to know, I know normally there's always issues with not having enough contractors to do the paving and the sidewalks. Are you all looking to add more contractors?
Our paving is actually, the paving contractors can hang up or can keep up with our needs at this moment. We have 2 paving contractors One that does specifically like go out and mill and then come back and repave the roadway. And then there's another one that, that comes out and does more involved improvements to the roadways that Jennifer was talking about. Like fixing shoulders, maybe replacing pipes as necessary up below the roadways. So hopefully that we won't have to come back later on and cut the road, replace that pipe, and repave it again.
Would you consider adding a contractor to maintain these existing roads?
We would need to because our current contractors can't really perform those services right now. And to further identify what you were asking earlier, yes, preventative maintenance would be significantly great. Like every dollar that we spend would, the goal of paving, right, is to get our bad roads in good condition, but also keep our good roads in good condition. So the more preventative maintenance that we can do in the future would, really solidify our pavement network.
Okay. And will there be any focus on alleys? The alleys are really, really bad.
Currently, you're funding $1 million every year for alley repaving. That's separate from the actual paving program. It doesn't go very far, so I would say that if that funding were to be increased, then go further. But, I guess that's a question for when the budget comes on out.
Can you please talk up? I'm
I'm
barely
sorry.
make your words out. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so you fund $1 million right now for alley repaving at this moment. I would say that any further need in alley repaving would be a conversation at budget time. Welcome.
Councilman Bratcher.
Just several quick questions. I think is there a list of what's going to be paved this summer?
Yeah, I submit a monthly report every month showing the updates to the paving that we're doing this fiscal year. There's also one for alley paving and one for bridges and one for sidewalks that we submit as well.
Is that what the QR would lead me to?
The QR would lead you to the actual 3-year paving plan, so that's kind of what we have planned on out for each fiscal year. So in an ideal world, like this would be showing fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26, and fiscal year 27. But since we're going through that new PCI study at the moment, we only have fiscal year 25 and 26 because there's probably going to be significant changes in 27 with this new data that we're about to receive.
And if I put a road in, it'll tell me a ballpark figure when it will be paved,
It will tell you the PCI. So
the number, the rating,
yeah, I'll tell you the rating, and from the rating you can.
and everything 55 or below will get attention. Is that?
I mean, we go as far as what our funding will allow us to pave.
Right, okay. You don't pave state roads, right?
We do not.
Do you have any input on that at all?
We do not.
So they hire their own whatever, and they do it on their own without any coordination, right? And what about about 2 weeks ago, there was a Louisville Water Company issue on a road in my district, and it was paved. Would that been you guys or Louisville Water? How much coordination with other?
So we are trying to get much better at coordination. There are still instances of emergencies where we may have just paved a road, but if a pipe bursts, especially over this current winter, we would have to allow emergency access to service those lines.
But that was you guys doing it, not Louisville Water Company, right?
I would have to know the location, but I can check on
Well,
that.
is Louisville Water Company capable of doing it on their own? Paving a part of a road where they dug up?
Louisville Water Company would hire a contractor to go do that
Okay.
work for them.
Okay, I see. And then just one more question is, do you grade, this is kind of off subject, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but roads have grades like A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Is that true in Metro?
So we
Now,
usually.
I don't mean pavement, I just mean ability to transport vehicles?
As far as the roadway classification? Yes, we do have a classification approach that we use. And the classification, it tends to be like a major arterial, minor arterial, collector, local level road.
But it's not the deterioration of the road. It's just, I guess we could save that for another day. I'm just trying to see if there's a grade, does a road have a grade on how much traffic it can hold, say, for example?
There are some general metrics do you mean as far as the number of lanes? There's some general guidelines as far as
Yeah,
how
how
much.
wide it is a big part of it, right?
Right, so there are some guidelines that we could get and share that would outline, if you have a 4-lane road, how much traffic could go down it in an hour. But we can certainly look to see if there are some examples that would help, if that's something you would like.
Okay, I'll get back with you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Chapel.
Thank you. Thank you for being here as well. Just a point of clarification. So the new PCI scores will be done at some point in April, possibly mid-April. And then at that time, we'll be able to tell which districts have, like scoring for each district, as well as things like what percentile each one has, or, more metrics that will allow us to look at this, from a wider lens.
Yes, that's true. Unfortunately, we will not be able to have that information in and processed in time to inform the fiscal year 26 paving plan. It will probably take the rest of the calendar year to get that into the open data or the OpenGov software, and then to run that processing. But we are working with that vendor to expedite that as much as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, you said that the state roads, Taylorsville Road is a state road, so the state paves that road?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks. Well, from Hurstbourne Lane, it's not my district, but I've had people all the time. From Hurstbourne Lane to the Waterston Expressway, they must pave it every year. And I don't know what the base is. I don't know if it's concrete road underneath the paving or whatever, but in the summertime, it expands, and they come along and cut off where it bumps up. Mm-hmm. Then in the wintertime, it contracts. It's the roughest road in the world. And I would think somewhere along the line, I've never seen any other road other than Taylorsville Road have that almost looks like they need expansion joints or something. I've never seen it expands and contracts so much that it's so bumpy. If you look at it sometime and tell somebody in the highway department, hey, can you all look at this? You shouldn't be paving it every year. But it's so rough, and when it expands and contracts, and somebody comes along and cuts the bumps off in the summertime because of the expansion, then when it contracts then they try to fill them. It is a mess. And then, come fall, they repave it again, and it just seems like, but I don't know if the base is concrete. Sometimes you pave over concrete, it doesn't hold as good, and water gets underneath it, and it sometimes it expands up, potholes and whatever. And so I don't know if you ever go down Taylorsville Road and notice that?
This is not the first time I've heard that concern specifically, and we can certainly share that with KYTC.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Herndon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm one of the newbies that Councilman Hudson referred to, so I'll probably have some questions I should already know. Also regarding state roads, my district, we all have state roads, but mine is particularly catacombed with them. And their condition is less than pristine, I would say. Like, for example, the Main Street, our primary tourist street, The block between 5th and 6th, the southern 2 lanes are like the Oregon Trail, and they have been for months. Do you know, should I alert you or them directly or both, or what's the proper procedure to get things like that taken care of?
Do you mean for maintenance, like for potholes, or for a request to pave?
Well, the northern, in that particular location, the northern 2 lanes are pretty good, but the southern 2 lanes on that block are just horrible. I mean, it's just really, really bad.
So
I don't know what to ask or who to ask.
So my understanding is that Main Street would be getting repaved with the Main Remade project for striping.
Yeah.
I don't have the latest update on that, but we can certainly get that. As far as potholes, there are various ways you can report those. We're actually going to kick off pothole season on Thursday. You're always welcome to call those in to 311 and report those. We do service potholes from our maintenance agreement with KYTC on state roads.
Okay. Do you prefer to be copied on anything District 5, or would you rather me keep your email box a little lighter?
You're always welcome to email me. If there is something that isn't getting resolved, please definitely alert me to
So
that.
try first, then preferable. Okay. On alleys, District 4 is a lot, of course, being urban in the older alleys. There's some alleys that have exposed the original brick pavers, or the bricks. What's the standard? What do you do with those? Do you pave over them? Do you try to repair the bricks? How do you determine what you do with those particular alleys?
I believe it varies. Matt may have a better answer.
So preferably, I would like to have the materials stay the same. However, bricks do become cost prohibitive very quickly. They're about, I don't know, 8 to 10 times more expensive than asphalt paving. So I think it's a case-by-case basis that we need to evaluate and see what we can do in order to make the proper repairs necessary.
Yeah, and I see some that are so patchy, I'm not sure that you could frankly repair them with brick unless you just went in and just completely redid them, and that's obviously going to be way expensive. But at what point you decide enough, we'll just fix it and pave it out? Is that your call, or just whatever happens to be the best?
Yeah, so we're looking at that from a cost perspective as well, too. So if it makes more sense to make spot repairs, we'll do that. However, most of the time, it would be more economical to remove those pavers and put back down asphalt. Now, there's some locations where we can't do that, historic preservation districts, so we would have to go back in with very specific
Butcher Drive, for
materials.
example, would require
Yes.
bricks. And if you take them out, do you save them, the originals?
Yeah, so we do salvage any bricks that we can reuse later on. We store them at our roads facilities, and we'll pull from those if we need to at a later time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Parrish Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My last question is, we've been trying to distill a lot of the information that we're learning from departments down to our district level, so we need more like a one-pager that kind of breaks it down. I know that you are waiting on studies and some things won't be ready to the end of the year, but for what you have, is there something that you can give us like a district breakdown for? And forgive me, I have not went all the way through your 3-year report, but something that I can pull from that and like include it in our district advisory board meetings, included in our newsletter that says, even if it's just a little bit of the schedule, a little bit what you know, I know everything isn't laid out. I just want to have a way to give this to our folks that is in line with the language, the time schedule, and all of that you're using.
So Matt pointed out we do a monthly paving update that should be sortable by district that would show the roads that haven't been completed for the current fiscal year. The schedule for fiscal year 26 would not have been released yet because, of course, we will want to have your input on it, but that will be something that will happen later this spring.
And it's okay to pull that report and share it as is, or do you have something that's a little bit simpler or whatever?
We can look at making that sortable. Maybe, I don't know if it already is, but that's something that we could probably add, just to sort it down so you could just click your district and it would sort by just what's in your district.
I don't want to create more work, Lord knows, but I will try to do it myself, but I want to share something that's consistent with what you're doing, and I want to be able to explain this to the district. So if you see that in a way that we could do that, I'm fine to do that, but I will on my own try to pull it down and see what's.
Okay. And I talked last time I was here about Department of Transportation and bringing in project managers to help with things. And some of that is being able to better dashboard and report in a way that is much more digestible. So that will be something we continue to work on.
Councilwoman Purvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you guys still taking work from like MSD and Louisville Water Company to put the roads back after they do jobs?
I don't know specifically if there was ever an opportunity to leverage what we're already doing, we would certainly take advantage of that. It's not that we're not actively, I believe, going out to seek repairs that other entities are doing.
I was told years ago that they were giving you public works jobs from after they did replacing pipes and so forth in the roads. Deputy Mayor George, would you know anything about that?
I can speak to that.
Would you know anything
Yeah,
about
so we have an actual paving contract that's specifically for utility repairs. Louisville Water Company is the only one that actually utilizes this contract. MSD, LG&E, or any other utilities do not try to leverage that. We have a utility policy that specifically requires them, any cuts, 15 foot on either side to repair that. However, I couldn't speak to how well we are enforcing that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Chapel.
Could you kind of give an overview of how the Department of Transportation will intersect with paving going forward? Because when I think about paving, there's the milling, the grading, the paving, the signs, the, street design, there's KYTC, there's UAL, there's contractors. Can you kind of talk about how the DOT will intersect with paving? And also the dashboard that you showed us earlier, will you all be inputting, all of your inventories in there? For example, everything from, trash can inventories to paving inventory?
So one of my personal goals is to be able to see the bulk of what we're working on simultaneously. I know the state has also expressed that they're interested in having a map that maybe they could share with us as well. But I think that, to your point, finding the intersection of all of the projects that we're planning or designing or are going to construction and where those overlap with other things is the whole point of the DOT, is just to have more information and to share that information. So some of the things that we're going to continue to do, I mentioned earlier, we are hiring a utility coordinator. So that was a recommendation through the DOT. That position is someone who could directly coordinate with Matt on paving, on getting information out to the utilities. Before COVID, we used to do a utility coordination meeting where information like that was shared, and it just never came back. So that is one of the goals for that position, is that we would get those meetings back on track. So as far as just utilities, the points about cuts, making sure everyone has the latest information, where we're going to be working, and just be able to leverage everything that we're doing together. The other thing that we are working towards is getting information to our planning team sooner. So projects where maybe they're sketching up a slow streets plan, if that's something that can get flagged and say, hey, we know that we're going to pave this, probably in a certain month. The team needs to know that, hey, we've got to have a plan done well before then so that we can reach out to neighbors and let them know and make sure the contractor has everything that they have. So it really becomes just aligning those tasks and opportunities, and then having probably also our local projects project manager would be the person who would see that coordination and be able to track it so that it doesn't get dropped. So yes, as far as DOT is involved, there are a lot of opportunities to really increase the effectiveness of our paving, to include things that aren't just, making sure that we've told utilities we're going to pave so they won't come back and tear roads up, or starting a project maybe 12 months sooner than we would have otherwise. And that really is, I think, the key to the intent of a Department of Transportation. I don't know if that fully answered your question.
Yeah, I guess, anxiously awaiting an organizational chart, because I'm also trying to figure out, will paving be underneath of the Department of Transportation? And would we expect in the future the DOT director to better address us on this? Not saying that you're not doing a great job at answering our questions and presenting the information. I'm just trying to understand, are these linear departments or are they hierarchical? So that's, I guess, what I'm trying to figure out, and maybe that information will become more obvious as we move into budget.
So the core, so Department of Transportation will be within Public Works, and the three legs of the stool are transportation planning, engineering, which includes the paving team, and then roads and operations. So capturing that whole cycle of planning for something, implementing it, and then maintaining it. So yes, the engineering team and the paving team falls under engineering within that scheme.
Thank you. I'll save questions for later.
Councilman Bratcher.
Dumb question. The reason, just as you have to have 40-degree or above weather for paving, same for potholes, right?
So on potholes, we have been using cold patch when the asphalt plants were not available. We did this Monday move to all day shift work for our roads and operations team. So during snow season, we split, and part of that team will move to night shift to make sure that we have coverage for inclement weather events. So as of Monday, everyone is back on first shift, which is going to give us better access to asphalt plants when they are open. So that is our first choice, is if we can use asphalt for patches and a plant is open, that is what we do. If we have to, we will use cold patch instead, but that's not our first choice.
Is there like a typical turnaround on potholes? I'm off subject again, Chairman. I'm liable to go all over the place.
So the expectation would be 24 to 48 hours, depending upon, how it's received, and then processed and made into a work order. So depending upon if it came in through 311 or if it landed in somebody's email, maybe it takes it a couple hours longer to get to a work order. But that's the general expectation, is that it would be done relatively quickly.
Currently? Even with all the weather you've just had?
That is not likely the case right at this moment. We were simultaneously battling flooding, then snow, then flood cleanup, and now potholes. So with flood cleanup wrapping up last week, and again, everyone being on first shift, that is our priority right now, is getting the potholes repaired. But with having a glut, that may delay. Usually when we do a big pothole blitz in the spring, there can be some delay just with the amount of potholes that we are repairing. We are prioritizing those potholes that are on the higher volume, higher speed roadways, just from a safety perspective.
Yeah.
And then also working with 311 mapping to get ideas on if there are areas that have a higher number of potholes, so that we can work more efficiently and get those covered, and then also from the 311 requests.
I made a 311 request, and I'm just waiting to see, not to play gotcha, because, man, I know it's been a tough year, and I'm not going to play gotcha. I know, I'm just curious. I'm just new, and I just want to see how long it'll take. It's been a while since I made that call, but several years ago, you guys made an agreement with the state for certain maintenance things. Can you explain that?
So we have a memorandum of agreement with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet District 5, and that is for certain maintenance items on surface roads within the city county. That would not include interstates. We meet with the District 5 maintenance team monthly, and we will present, there is routine maintenance that we do, say potholes, for instance, other maintenance items such as ditching, sidewalk repairs, other items. We meet with them, and in some cases, we ask for their approval before we move forward. But yes, we do maintain many items for the state.
So you do potholes of state roads?
Yes.
And then the last one, you mentioned the transportation will be broke down into 3 legs, and one of them will be planning.
Transportation planning, yes.
And will you intersect or overlap with the traffic study that is done on like new developments? Would that be what, will you look, do you look over those traffic studies that developers come up with?
Yes, so as it is today, when a private development submits a development plan that requires a traffic study, that all goes through planning and design. Planning and design has a transportation planning team, which the bulk of the members of that team are, well, it's made up of engineers and planners who were reviewing that, and then also would be reviewing the traffic study. That team will be moving over with the Department of Transportation and will become part of the transportation planning team within the DOT, so that all of those functions are together and it's clearer from the outside.
That really sounds good. I'm glad you guys come up with that. It sounds like real organization. And then also you have a project manager that'll be familiar with a project as it goes through the years too. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't have anyone else in the queue. Did you have more in your presentation?
No, that was all, unless there are
Okay.
any other questions.
All right. We don't have anyone else in the queue. Thank you for coming. I think I speak for everyone when I say that paving in all of its forms, whether that's actual paving the roads, repairing potholes, sidewalks, sidewalk ramps, traffic studies, is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that we get calls about in our office. So thank you for the information you brought us today. Appreciate you coming and sharing it with us.
Thanks.
We're adjourned. Thank you.